DC versus Vampires, issue 12. James Tynion the fourth, with Matthew Rosenberg writing, with Otto Schmidt on the art. So this is the final issue of this, and I gotta say, didn't really like how this ended.
I don't think it stuck the landing at all.
Well, one of my complaints about the last few issues, and basically the last half of the book, so it was great and had the big reveal of Dick around issue 5 or 6. The last half of this book, which I complained about last issue, was just these three groups of characters doing their own missions. But I was like, oh, but it's got some build up. The ending with Supergirl maybe being in that explosion was kind of like a good cliffhanger, and she's going to swoop in and help save the day in Gotham once she's like powered up again. I was shocked when I got to the end of this issue, and all three of the groups, Oliver in Smallville, Supergirl with the others in Australia, and the main stuff in Gotham, it never interacted. They never affected each other. It was basically just the story ended with Barbara and Dick in like some sort of vampire romance revenge way, where Barbara becomes queen of the vampires after being bitten and sired by Dick, and like the Supergirl thing didn't even matter. Like she's back and she's got her powers again, and but nothing comes of it.
No, but they changed Clark. We never saw Clark after that, right? So we don't even know what a a vampire Kryptonian is like capable of, because they've kept that hidden the whole time. So she's still not out of the woods. Like, yeah, she got her solar energy back, but now she has to still hang up above the clouds. Like, yeah. So like you said, it doesn't matter. She had no impact on the outcome. And I just felt like they were writing for the sequel more than they were trying to finish a story. And like, it's not even the fact that like Barbara becomes the vampire queen. It's the way in which it happens. It happens so quickly. And like, I missed the part where like I saw her drink the blood, but I don't know. I just felt like the way that she was, I didn't feel like she would just give up that quickly. Like, Dick or not, you know what I mean? Like, she was so like ready to go in there and kill him and end this, and even brought Harley to do it. But then it all just seemed like she wanted to be queen, and that was her end game. And that didn't track for me with anything else. And then even just the way that it's told through the art, everything happens just so quickly. I thought I was missing a page in my book, because I kept flipping back to figure out like what led to her deciding to drink his blood. And it was just the page before she was fighting him, So yeah, it was very much a letdown.
Yeah. I wasn't really into the way it wrapped up either. Like, it kind of felt like they were going for this thing where, because Dick was in her dreams, and it was kind of like that vampire trance thing of like drawing in the victim kind of thing. But it never really felt like it really played with that. And it felt like as soon as she became a vampire, it was like, okay, now I'm queen, so now I'm going to change everything to do what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. And that was basically it.
Well, and then at that point too, right? Dick's dead. So wasn't their plan as if she kills Dick, everyone would turn back?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's why she was going to kill Dick, because if you kill the king, right, and everyone reverts back, then that was the end game. But then she just becomes queen. No,
I don't think they ever suggested that everyone would turn back. No.
Gotcha. So she just wanted to kill him because
Well, he's the king, so you take out the king. They're much weaker overall as a result, kind of thing. There's a big thing where Captain Cold fires his ice gun into the sky to create like a beam of like solar light to come down and hit Supergirl, which is it's a big moment.
To freeze the ash in the sky. I did like, even though it's kind of, when I think about it, it's really stupid, but him going like, "Oh, I can't do that," and then he goes and does it anyways, and sure, it blows up the gun and himself in the process. But they just set up how that's impossible, and then it happens anyways. So there's just a lot of that in this book of, oh, we can't do that, and then they do it anyways. So yeah.
I mean, I didn't really have a problem with that. It's just he's doubting it. He doesn't think it can work, and then it kind of does, but at a price, whatever. Like, I'm fine with that. My bigger problem is that none of the three plots actually ended up affecting the overall. Like, it didn't feel like they came back together in any way, shape, or form at the end. My expectation the whole time was that if Supergirl was going to get powered up, she was going to fly to Gotham and intervene and be like the turning point for the fight.
Yeah.
Whether it was going to succeed or fail ultimately in the end,
Right.
and give us a sad or good ending is is irrelevant. But it never actually played into it at all. Babs just becomes the vampire queen and says, but there's still human enemies out there. And there's just a couple of panels of like Oliver with his people in Smallville, Supergirl with her people in Australia, and that's it. And it's like, it does feel like it's been left open intentionally so there can be a sequel. Yeah. But honestly, it's left me not wanting to read a sequel.
If there's a sequel, I'm not interested in it. Just because, because again, like, okay, Superman's still out there as a vampire, so that kind of puts Kara in check, right? What use is Kara having powers if she can be turned at any point? So it kind of takes their card away. I did like that they put over Mary Marvel a little bit here, talking about how she didn't go down like the rest of her family. I did like that. It made Mary feel pretty special, and if there was any caveat to a sequel, I'd like to see how that, goes, like Mary versus the rest of the Shazam family. I think would be interesting. But outside, I really did enjoy the Oliver stuff though with Swamp Thing, and him taking out Hawkman, because I do love the dynamic that Hawkman and Green Arrow have.
Well, how did
this love-hate relationship?
Explain how he did that though. How did he take out Swamp Thing, or take out Hawkman rather?
Yeah, so he just wasn't it that he it was the old rope-a-dope. He let Hawkman think that he was gonna that they have the upper hand, and then he used wasn't it a big piece of the Swamp Thing, like a almost like a sword?
Oh, you're struggling
he
here.
Rams it through him.
No. So he has a bow and arrow made out of Swamp Thing parts. He fires them with a bunch of the Swamp Thing arrows, and then he says, "Swamp Thing, do it," and then Swamp Thing makes all the arrows expand and grow.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I like that. That's where they're thinking, because it was a lot of Hawkman talking to, Ollie about just give up. You're not going to win, and it just goes into their whole dynamic. So, for some reason I thought that he had maybe I'm confusing him with the Avengers versus the Vampires story, because I remember one of those characters using Man-Thing in a similar way, to grow like a wooden like spear that they stabbed through one of them. But yeah, ultimately this left me super disappointed. I really liked the first half when there was that mystery, and like anybody could be a vampire, and we had the death of Zan, and Jaina trying to track who had done it with Bruce. It was working really well there, because the story was more than just humanity versus this vampire apocalypse. And once it became kind of about the vampire apocalypse, it started losing steam for me, and ultimately ended with a thud.
Yeah, I think Superman, by the way, I think he might have been killed already in the spin-off book we weren't reading.
Oh, well, that's a shame. I wish they were more clear about that. But still, she can be turned though, because he was hypnotized by Wonder Woman.
I know, but you kept bringing up like Superman's, and I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like he is. So I googled Superman and DC versus vampires, and it sounds like his story was done in that, and he's because it doesn't feel like he's a factor in like these last few issues at all.
No.
So
completely removed.
Well, I get why you were saying it. It felt like it didn't fit with what the story was doing. So I was just corroborating.
No,
something felt off.
Well, and I just get a little like, I don't want to say irritated, but like Rosenberg called me out specifically because I kept saying like the whole Kryptonian thing with the vampires is the vampire lore wasn't strong enough for me for the Kryptonians. Like I wanted to see more of Superman and how this reacted with him, because they even mentioned though at a certain point, once the sun was blocked out, right, it took away Kara's Kryptonian abilities. So now Superman's just running around with vampire abilities, So I needed to see why he was such, because he kept mentioning Superman up there with the Leagues of Wonder Woman and whatever is kind of their ace cards, but he never impacted the story. Once he got turned, we never saw him again. So that's why I kept waiting for maybe like, oh, Kryptonians kind of can fight through or whatever, and that made me hopeful for Supergirl. Like, yeah, once she gets her powers back, it's going to be hard to turn her. But then I always felt like I don't know where Superman is. So what's going on with him? I just wish it was clearer. But yeah, Rosenberg was like, oh, so you're upset over a thing that we haven't addressed yet? But it hasn't been addressed. Like, right? We never really addressed the Superman thing.
Oh, well,
So
maybe in the miniseries we didn't read.
yeah, maybe.
Because there was a spin-off 6-issue miniseries that
Right.
we all
We
dipped
read
out
it
after the
an
first
issue.
issue because it wasn't very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it ends with kind of this like hopeful moment of like, okay, it's kind of a bad ending, but Supergirl's got her powers back, so it ends with that final word hope on the last page.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know, the entire back half of this book felt like it was spinning its wheels, and it felt like these 3 separate plots were taking ages to get anywhere. And the hope is that at least the payoff to them all finally sort of culminating would lead to a big finale. And instead, it felt like they didn't affect each other. And I don't know, the back half of the book just feels like kind of a waste of time. It's like all of the good ideas, like it feels like it really does feel like a story of 2 books. It feels like the first 6 issues were one book, which was very, very good, and it was a really fun way of like exploring the idea of vampires in the DC universe, with the big twist of Nightwing being the one who was like behind everything, at least to a point. And then the back half of the book has just been this like wheel spinning, like not search for MacGuffins, but just like these 3 different individual teams going off to do their own plots. They just feel like they were building up and taking ages to get anywhere. And then the ending just feels like, oh, there's not even an ending here. Again, it feels kind of just really left open, so there can be a sequel if they want there to be one. I have to give like the entire back half of this book, which wasn't like hard to read, and there was fun moments here or there. I mean, even in this issue, there's a fun moment where Dick and Barbara are talking about Bruce, and like Harley just goes, "Who's Bruce?" And I thought that was kind of funny, because you know, obviously they're not hiding his secret identity anymore because it doesn't matter, but they've also not specifically told her that Bruce Wayne was Batman. So I thought that was kind of funny. But like that's it. That's all I've really got to say about it. The entire back half of the book just feels very unfulfilling, and it felt like it was just kind of a series of like busy work to like have all the characters doing something that didn't really culminate to anything meaningful in the end, and that feels like a big shame to me.
Yeah, I agree. I finished this book, I think, on Wednesday night, and was just like, okay. What next comic am I reading? You know, and it just kind of left me like, I didn't like this, so I need to wash it out. So
yeah,
that's a disappointment. That's a disappointment too, because I like Tynion and Rosenberg as writers, and I guess I expect more from them, especially pulling threads together, because you know both of them have in other books. So
yeah, well, we know that Tynion had the idea and then left it for Rosenberg to script. I do wonder, like, if this was originally 12 issues in the plotting phase, or it kind of feels like it shifted in the back half. It feels like the back half was written by someone different, and and even though I've liked some of Rosenberg's other stuff, I do wonder if it became more a Rosenberg book in the second half, especially since the tie-in series, which was also Rosenberg, I think, was instantly like, no, I don't like this very much. So I have to speculate how much Tynion was involved with the back half of the story specifically. Because it feels like a step down.
That's a great question.
A huge step down, even, I would say. So it's a shame, because there probably is like a good version of this where it's like, oh, we're doing like Vampire Nightwing with like Barbara being like his main like like love interest / victim that he's trying to draw in with these vampire like spellbinding, hypnotizing powers.
Because I could accept Barbara taking the vampire thing if she was mortally wounded, right? Like someone that wasn't Nightwing, one of his guards, Wonder Woman or whatever, mortally wounds her, and Dick can't bear to see her die. So that's where he's like, just join me and live, right? And then she executes her plans. Like, well, I'm just going to be queen then, because clearly you're too weak for this, Then I could have bought that, but this it seemed like she went in there ready to take him out just because she wanted to be queen. And that didn't gel with anything else that, with her.
But was that her plan going in though? I don't know if it was.
I don't know. That's the thing. That's why it's such an odd choice there,
I mean, I think one of the things you said earlier that I really agree with is that it feels like the moment where she decides to give in just feels like a nothing moment. I'm like, if she was really fighting this and then sort of like succumbs to it in a moment of weakness or in a moment of like desperation, that should feel like a big moment, and it just kind of feels like it happens in a panel. It's just like, oh, now she's accepting the blood. That's it. Like, you know, like give us like some narration from her or something where she's like scared and scared of dying and like, you know, succumbs to it, but it just kind of happens like a nothing moment. I don't know. Honestly, this is a very disappointing final issue, and it kind of comes in a weird position where the back half of the book, you know, issue 7 onwards, was kind of not as good as the rest, and it started to feel like we're waiting for the final issue to justify what this last 5 issues has been, and I don't think it did. So I think it's extra disappointing because of that, because we were hoping it was going to save it in a way, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a shame.
Big time shame.
All right, what are you giving DC versus Vampires?
I'm gonna give this a 5.5.
That's like a death sentence coming from you. Yeah, something in the 5 range sounds about right. Honestly, massive letdown, to be honest. I think the back half of the book turned into a massive letdown overall, but this final issue really just was, it felt like you didn't really have a good plan of where this was going. So it just hurts it all even more in hindsight.
Almost feels like, I don't know, Bab's a vampire now.